Good evening, everyone. I am Dr. Withen. I'm the head of school for Ivy Classical Academy. And it is a pleasure to have this opportunity to speak to you all this evening and hopefully to answer some of the many questions that I know that you all have. It was very exciting to have our very first lottery and begin to enroll our first 550 students this week. It turns out, and I wanted to let everyone know that the glitch with the blank remainder of the email was not an Ivy Classical unique situation. It is something that several schools experienced this week who ran their lotteries. But that issue has been resolved, and happily, registration is now up as well. That button has been ungraded on SchoolMint, so you're able after this to log in and to begin to upload all the documents that are required for registering your child. If you've not already accepted their seat, of course, make sure you do that by next Monday, the 12th, as well. So over the last couple of days, we've received a lot of questions from parents who want to know more about Ivy Classical Academy. Many of you who've already enrolled your children, some who perhaps are still considering enrolling your child for the coming school year. And so we wanted to take the opportunity to answer some of the most common of those questions tonight. So we've received several hundred questions from parents and sort of boiled those down to about 30 that are the most common of those questions. So if you don't hear your question answered, or if you have perhaps a question that is particular to your circumstances or unique to your child, you can send that question to info@ivyclassical.org after this broadcast, and I'd be happy to address that one-on-one with you. But I think that most questions will be addressed in this broadcast. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and launch right into those questions. So the first question is, what are the required qualifications for teachers at Ivy Classical Academy? The main qualifications for teachers at Ivy Classical are that we're looking for teachers who are thoughtful, who are well educated, who are intellectually engaged, in short, who are exemplars of the kind of moral and intellectual virtues that we're seeking to inculcate in our students. Now, that means that at a minimum, they have to have a bachelor's degree in addition to those dispositions and attitudes of personality. A bachelor's degree is a requirement across the board. But in the upper school, especially when we're talking about subject area teachers, right? People who are teaching subjects like history or algebra or trigonometry or biology, we're primarily looking for people who have subject matter degrees, and we prefer advanced degrees in those subjects as well, because when you get into our upper school curriculum, the level of rigor requires a level of expertise that we need in those teachers. And so across the board, we're looking for well-educated, thoughtful people, but especially in the upper school, we're looking for folks with advanced degrees and those more advanced subject area degrees specifically, not general education degrees. What does instruction look like in the classrooms at Ivy Classical Academy? Excellent question here as well. So first of all, I want to invite you, if you have the ability to do so, to visit some of the more established Hillsdale affiliated schools. All of them are always very happy to have guests who are there to receive a tour of the school and see instruction in action. The closest one to us is Atlanta Classical Academy. It's about 2.5 hours away. I know, quite a drive, but a great school to visit if you have the opportunity to do so. They're in their 10th year this year, so a very well-established school. They've had, I think, 7 or 8 graduating classes at this point. And they are an award-winning school. They recently won the Henry Salvatore Prize from Hillsdale College, which is the highest prize that Hillsdale College offers to classical schools, including not just its affiliated member schools, but classical schools generally, to recognize their success. They've also received some recognition from the state of Georgia for their literacy program specifically. So really an excellent model of the kind of school that Ivy Classical Academy is and will be. So back to what instruction looks like in the classrooms, though, there's three things that I think are great terms to remember when describing a classical classroom in general. The first is teacher-led. Multimodal is the second, and the third is content-rich. So teacher-led means that the teacher is, as I talked about already, a subject matter expert who is leading their class in stimulating interactive lectures, explanations, discussions, demonstrations. Think of an active, a teacher who is actively teaching from the front of the classroom in a way that engages their students and that excites them and conveys not just their knowledge but their passion for their subject as well. And that's what instruction looks like at Ivy Classical Academy. It's multimodal, and what that means is that it engages all of the senses. So we're not just looking at words on a page. We're looking at pictures. We are hearing things said aloud. We're reading them. We're discussing them. We are seeing visual imagery, demonstrations of them, and so all children are being engaged in a way that they can learn. And that last piece, content rich. We're focused on things that matter. You'll hear in contemporary education a lot of educators say things like it doesn't matter what they're reading as long as they're reading, but we know that not just because it's doesn't fit in with the philosophy of classical education, but because the science of reading and the research behind how children learn to read indicates to us that we know that that's wrong. It very much matters what children are reading and what they're learning about, and we want to teach them things that will help them to better understand the world around them and that will help support their knowledge of our society, of our history, of scientific fact, all the things that are going to support engagement with the world, good citizenship, and quality reading instruction as well. And so you'll see that throughout classrooms and really throughout grade levels at Ivy Classical Academy. In particular, as students get older, there will be a great deal more student-led discussion as well. In the upper school in particular is where Socratic seminar becomes a key feature of how we teach, especially the humanities, philosophy, literature, history, and so on. And so students are able to engage with those texts in a way that makes them their own, right? They're talking about the themes that they encounter in those texts and the meaning of those texts and even how those texts relate to their own thoughts and their own lives and experiences. The next question, what does my child's day look like? Again, there are some differences across the grade levels. There are a few general rules, though, that we can apply. So in the lower school, and when I say lower school, I really mean the elementary grade, so kindergarten through 5th grade, every student has more or less the same amount of time per subject. So for literacy, that's about 120 minutes, and literacy would include phonics instruction, particularly in K through 2, grammar instruction and composition in 3 through 5. It would include poetry memorization, which is a key component of our curriculum as well. On average, our students will memorize about 1 poem a month during their time in school, and so they'll have several dozen poems that they will memorize by the end of their time at Ivy Classical Academy. Literacy also includes literature, so reading and discussing great works of literature is part of that as well. So that's about 120 minutes, so about 2 hours over the course of the day. Not as one block, but broken up into small increments. In kindergarten, increments as small as 5 or 10 minutes. In 5th grade, increments that are more like 30 or 40 minutes as we build their attention spans over time. Over the course of the day, students in K through 5 will experience about 90 minutes of math, and that's typically broken up into 3 30-minute segments. About 20 to 30 minutes of history, 20 to 30 minutes of science, again, depending on grade level, and they'll do both subjects for the full 20 to 30 minutes each day. They'll have about 40 minutes of either art, music, Spanish, or an enrichment and remediation block, and they'll cycle through those on a 5-day rotation over the course of the week. So, in a 5-day week, they'll do art once, music once, Spanish once, and then 2 days of enrichment and remediation. And that's time for our gifted teachers, our special education teachers, our instructional assistants, and our mainstream classroom teachers to get those students into small groups and work with them one-on-one or in a very small group of students to help target their particular needs. In addition, in K through 5, every student will have 30 minutes of recess a day, 30 minutes of an active physical education. When I say active, I mean they're actually engaged in exercise for that 30 minutes, and 30 minutes of lunch as well. In the upper school, our periods will run about 45 to 50 minutes. They actually come out to somewhere around 47 minutes if you include passing times there. And that'll include the core subjects, literature, composition, history, Latin, or in 10th through 12th grade, if they'd like to, another modern foreign language, a math block, either art or music, or another elective once they get into high school, and then either government or philosophy, and they'll have those in 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. So that's what our students' days look like at the various grade levels. At the beginning of the school year, your child's teacher, or in the upper school, their homeroom teacher, will give you their full schedule, so you'll know exactly what they're doing really at any given point in the day. So moving on to the next question. What are the qualifications for students at Ivy Classical Academy? The only qualification that we have for students is that they live in the state of Alabama. And that their parents enroll them at Ivy Classical Academy because we are a school of choice. We are a public charter school. And what that means is that every student, regardless of their demographics, of their background, of their previous record at the school that they attended previously, is entitled to enroll at Ivy Classical Academy if we have a seat available for those students. So every year we'll hold a lottery once a year, and typically that lottery will open up in the first week of December, and then we'll actually hold the lottery, just as we did this time, in the first week of February. And at that point, any seats that are available will be allotted on a random basis to students whose parents entered them into that lottery, and then the rest of the students will be at random assigned a place on our wait list. After the lottery is run in February, just as we're doing now, other students can sign up or try to enroll at Ivy Classical Academy, but will be placed on the wait list on a first-come, first-served basis. And then, again, every December, it resets. We do the lottery all over again, and we clear the wait list, and then repopulate that wait list in February following the lottery. So that'll happen every year. And there are no, tests to get in. We're not a magnet school where, we're just for one single district, or where you have to have a certain test score or demonstrate a certain portfolio to get in. Instead, again, we are a public school that accepts all students in the state of Alabama. The next question here, if my family applies to the lottery with more than one child, is it possible that one child is offered a seat and the other sibling is not? No, that is not possible because we do give preference to the siblings of students who are accepted in the lottery. So if one sibling is accepted, all of the other siblings will be accepted in the lottery as well. And then, of course, if you have children, say that you enroll your child in kindergarten in the coming school year, and then you've got a 3-year-old who wants to enroll in 2 years, they will not have to go into the random lottery. You'll have to enter the lottery, but they'll automatically get that sibling preference and rise to the top of the list. The next question here, what are Ivy Classical Academy's discipline policies? Our full discipline policy is rather lengthy. I'll explain just a bit of it here in a moment, but I do encourage you to read it. It is in our family handbook, which we just posted to our website today. So if you go to ivyclassical.org and then go to the heading that says prospective parents, you can click on student handbook and you will see the draft version of our family handbook rather. You'll see the draft version of our family handbook, which includes our student code of conduct. Our student code of conduct is several pages worth of that family handbook, and all of the expectations that we have of students are in that book. The only changes that we foresee making to that family handbook between now and the beginning of the school year are the need to add a few things that are specific to the completion of our campus, like what evacuation routes will be for fire drills and that sort of thing. But to very briefly summarize our discipline policy, it starts with an emphasis on decorum across the board. We have 3 school-wide rules that every student will learn. The first is be on time, the second be prepared, and the third be respectful. And what we'll do is talk about those rules and the importance of them with our students, and help them to see why those rules create the kind of atmosphere that they want to go to school in. And that creates an environment of decorum, of politeness, of mutual respect between and among teachers and students, in which most acts of misbehavior become almost unthinkable. Now, when misbehavior does occur, we have an escalating series of consequences that includes corrections by the teacher. It includes having your behavior chart sent home at the end of the day in the lower grades, or receiving a demerit in the upper grades that will also be communicated to your parents. We also have a system of rewards, though, because we want to recognize when students are doing excellent work. And so in the lower school, we'll have, for example, weekly shout-outs in which our students will be recognized by their teachers and have their name said aloud. And, of course, they can stand and be recognized during our weekly school assemblies. In the upper school, they'll be able to earn merits, which will also earn points for their houses in our house system. And on a monthly basis, we'll have a student of the month for each of our virtues. And you can see the full list of the virtues that we focus on each month of the school year, as well as when all of our all academy assemblies will be held, by taking a look at our calendar, which is also on our website now under that same Prospective Parents tab. That has a full list of upcoming events, as well as the breaks and holidays and so on that we'll have over the course of the year. The next question here, what is Ivy Classical Academy's attendance policy? Again, this is the full attendance policy, can be found in our family handbook, recently posted on our website, and it is governed by Alabama law and Alabama state code. These are, things like attendance tend to be things that are governed by laws, and so we will follow an attendance policy that is probably very similar to, if not identical to, that of the local public schools, because attendance policies are governed by state law. The only thing that I'll add to that, in addition to what we have in our family handbook that you can take a look at, is the importance of being present every day on time, especially within a classical school. So as we talked about earlier, the classical classroom is a highly engaging place where learning is not happening through computer programs or through worksheets or textbooks or these other means that I'm sorry, I have ladybugs, or these other means that can be sent home or made up, right, in the way that maybe you've seen in other schools. You can't make up an hour-long class discussion about George Orwell's Animal Farm. You can't make up a 30-minute discussion led by the teacher about ancient Mesopotamia. And so it's very important that students be in school as much as is possible, and that they only miss school if it's absolutely essential that they do so, because they will miss out on excellent learning experiences if they're not present all day, every day. Will Ivy Classical Academy have a high school? Yes. So we're starting with kindergarten through 5th grade, and we will add a grade every year. So we will be K through 6 in the 25-26 school year, K through 7, all the way up until we are kindergarten through 12th grade. And that first group of 5th graders who are starting with us this year will eventually be that first graduating class 7 years down the road. So that is very exciting. And that is actually part of the contract that we have with Hillsdale College, that we will provide a full kindergarten through 12th grade experience, because our curriculum, which comes from Hillsdale College, is designed in such a way that from the moment that you enter kindergarten on the first day of school, you're preparing for the things that you'll be doing in the final semester of your senior year in high school, namely things like writing and presenting a senior thesis on one of the great books or the great ideas. Will Ivy Classical Academy students wear uniforms? Yes, we absolutely will have a uniform. The uniform guide will be going out to parents very, very soon. We're finalizing a few things about it right now. Our goal is to make those uniforms very affordable. Right now, I'm looking at prices that are well below what I think most people would be paying for uniforms, or even just for everyday wear for their children. So we're really excited to provide that full uniform guide to parents very, very soon. Will Ivy Classical Academy provide transportation? We will not be able to provide transportation. Our students are coming from a very wide area, and so we simply cannot provide busing to that very wide area that our students are coming from. But we do have an agreement with the local YMCA to provide our before and after care. And so the Grandview YMCA will provide busing between their campus and ours for the students who participate in our before and after care program. Will Ivy Classical Academy provide breakfast and lunch? Yes, we are working through the details of an agreement with Elmore County Public Schools right now to have our lunches provided by Elmore County Public Schools, which means that we'll participate in the same lunch program that every public school student, as well as some of the charter and private school students who receive Elmore County Public School lunches. They receive them from the public school system as well, and so it'll be the same price. And it's very important, I'll add to that it's very important that every parent, even if you think you don't qualify for free and reduced price lunch, when we distribute the free and reduced price lunch forms, and we plan to do that next month, we want every parent to complete that form because it affects the price of lunch and the eligibility for free lunch for all of our students. And so we need to have every parent complete that FRL form. Again, even if you think that you don't qualify for FRL, and many people qualify who don't realize that they do because the threshold is much higher than most people realize, it is important that you complete that form so that we're able to provide the documentation that we need to provide to make sure that we can provide all of our students with those nutritious lunches. What will safety and security look like at Ivy Classical Academy, including weather safety? So we are working with several groups, all of whom have been working on building and starting charter schools like ours for a decade or more. And of course, incorporating all of the latest technology that's necessary for safety and security at schools. That includes things like basic fencing, all the way up to the kind of glass that you use, the kind of locks that you use on doors, having a single point of entry, having a system where we scan IDs and do a quick background check for every visitor that comes into the building. And of course, we're working on establishing a security guard who will be in the building each day as well. And so we will have a very safe campus separated from the rest of High Point Town Center, and one that protects our students. What extracurricular activities, including sports and clubs, will Ivy Classical Academy have? So really excited to have our partnership with the Grandview Family YMCA for this reason, as well as a number of others. So in our inaugural year, they'll be able to provide us with access to an excellent sports program that includes just about every sport that you can name: basketball, cheerleading, football, martial arts, tennis, volleyball, t-ball, a number of others as well. So our students will be able to participate in all of those sports through the YMCA. As we build up the school and enter having a middle school and a high school, then we'll want to have those Ivy Classical teams that are practicing on our campus and that are playing as Ivy Classical against other schools. And so that's something that we'll build out as we add those grades to the school. In addition to sports, we'll also have after-school clubs. Those will be on our campus, and they'll include a number of different options. There'll be things like chess, dance, drama club, ballet, computer programming, as, of course, age and grade level appropriate. A full list of those clubs will be distributed to parents at the beginning of each semester, and then those clubs will run for a single semester, or you can continue into the second semester by reiterating your child's interest in that club. What field trips will Ivy Classical Academy have for students? So every grade level will have 2 field trips a year. Typically, we'll do one in the fall semester and one in the spring semester. Those field trips will start with visiting local historical and cultural and natural sites. So we'll start with exploring the river region, the Prattville area, Montgomery, and the areas around us. Important to mention that all of our field trips will relate to our curriculum. So all of our field trips will have some sort of educational significance to what the students are studying at that grade level, which is wonderful for a place like Prattville that has such wonderful natural beauty as well as historical significance for our students to explore. As we add grade levels, upper school students will have opportunities to do field trips that are to places further away. Atlanta, for example, is definitely a field trip for our upper school student that is on our radar, visiting a number of different sites there, museums and the aquarium and so on. We want to begin planning very early for an 8th grade trip to Washington, D.C., and a senior trip for our seniors in the summer before they enter their 12th grade year that will take them overseas. And we're going to start planning those as early as the coming school year so that we can make sure that every student who wants to participate in those much bigger field trips 3 years or 7 years down the line is able to do so. Will Ivy Classical Academy offer art and music? Absolutely. And we will not refer to them as extracurriculars or resources or extras. We'll refer to them at Ivy Classical as fine arts, because they're an essential component of what children need to learn, so they're at the center of our curriculum. And typically, our art and music curriculum at any given grade level relates to what the students are learning in their history, their literature, and even their science. So that there's a cohesive approach to teaching young people about the world, including great art and great music. In the lower school, they'll have art and music each once a week for about 40 minutes, so that's kindergarten through 5th grade. As they enter middle school, so in 6th through 8th grade roughly, they'll rotate on a every other day basis between the two, and that'll run the full year, and so they'll have either art or music 2 to 3 times a week. And then in high school, they'll be able to take art and music electives. Now, in addition to having these as a core component of our curriculum, we also want to build excellent music and art programs. So one of the things that, as I've been hiring art and music teachers, that I've been keeping an eye out for are the folks that have the skill set, the knowledge, and the enthusiasm to build a great music program and to build a great art program, not just to teach art, but one day to have art shows at the school and art contests, to have a dinner where our students' art is displayed for members of the community, for example, to build out an upper school orchestra, to have a chorus. All of these things are things that we have planned for the art and the music program at Ivy Classical Academy as we build out those programs going into the future. What will be Ivy Classical Academy's hours? Our hours for students will run 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. each day. Drop-off will start at 7:30, and our car line at the end of the day will typically run from 3 to 3:30. Again, it's very important that every student is in the classroom by 8 o'clock. Instruction begins right at 8 o'clock, and we don't want our students to miss a minute of it because it is important that they have all of it. Again, we'll offer before and after care through the Grandview YMCA. That before care will begin about 6:15 a.m., and the aftercare will end at about 6 p.m. in the afternoon or in the evening. What is the school calendar? The school calendar, or at least a draft version of it, and I don't expect that to change, is posted to our website right now. If you go to ivyclassical.org, click on Prospective Parents, and then go to our school calendar in the drop-down, you'll see a calendar, and you'll notice if you compare it to the Elmore County Public Schools calendar that it very closely follows the Elmore County Public Schools calendar. So if Elmore County has we've copied their start and their end days. We've copied their days off, their Christmas break and other things, Thanksgiving break, other holidays, and so on. If they call it, for an inclement weather day, we will take that day off as well. So we're going to follow Elmore County and what they lay out for school versus non-school days. And of course, we also have some planned events for the school year that are on that calendar as well. We'll be adding more as the school year goes on. Field trips, for example, will be added to the calendar so that everyone can see when those things are happening. Will Ivy Classical Academy have a playground? I'm not sure where that noise came from. Ivy Classical Academy will definitely have a playground. In fact, we're looking at having a couple of playgrounds so that we can divide them up between grade levels. We are also going to have a green space for our upper school students. So plenty of outdoor space for our students to use for their 30 minutes of daily recess, as well as their 30 minutes of daily PE. And those things are in progress right now. We had engineers and inspectors and others on site today, actually, planning all of the renovations, including the putting in the playground that are going to be happening on our campus in the coming weeks. The next question, how many classes will Ivy Classical Academy have at each grade level, and what are the class sizes? So at this time, we are expecting a total of 632 students across grades K through 5, and then we'll be adding about 100 students a year, probably most of them entering through our kindergarten class as we add those classes in the future. We're looking at 4 to 5 sections across the grade levels, and then somewhere between 20 to 24 students per class, again, depending on the grade level. What volunteer opportunities will Ivy Classical Academy have for parents? Wonderful questions. So Ivy Classical Academy is going to have a PTC. We'll call it PTC, and that stands for Parent Teacher Coalition. And that PTC will be charged with supporting and encouraging teachers, so doing things like providing them with excellent lunches and breakfasts for our Teacher Appreciation Week. They'll be charged with fundraising on behalf of the school, planning and implementing events, things like our Donuts with Dad and Muffins with Mom events, our dances as we have those going into the future. We want PTC members to help fundraise for them, to plan them, to implement them, and to chaperone those events as well. In addition to what the PTC is doing, we will also have parent volunteers that are welcome on our campus. We're going to put together a list of parent volunteers in the coming months, and we'll have an inaugural PTC meeting where we'll also solicit some volunteers. But we're looking for volunteers to do a number of things across the school. We want volunteers for car line, volunteers to help supervise and distribute lunches, volunteers who can come in and read with lower school students, especially our kindergarten and first grade students, and help them practice their phonics together. We want volunteers who can assist with administrative tasks in the front office. And of course, we want volunteers who want to chaperone events and field trips. So all of those, we'll have a full list of those opportunities that we'll publish in the coming months, and we'll start to take the names of those parents who want to volunteer to do those things, and have you do the requisite background check to get you certified as a volunteer at Ivy Classical Academy. What is Ivy Classical Academy's relationship with Hillsdale College? Wonderful question. I was wearing my Hillsdale sweater actually a little bit earlier today. I should have worn it to the Zoom. They give me a new sweater every time I go up there, and I get to wear it about 2 months out of the year here in the South. You can wear it year-round in Michigan, though. So lots of things that Hillsdale provides us with. We don't exchange money with Hillsdale College. Instead, we make promises to Hillsdale College, and we deliver on those promises. And in turn, they provide us with training and professional development for our teachers. So all of our new teachers are going to fly up to Hillsdale College in June and receive about a week and a half's worth of training in classical education with a heavy emphasis on literacy and pedagogy, not liturgy, though Hillsdale does that as well, I hear. But literacy and pedagogy. And then they'll come down in October, and then in February of our first year, they'll observe our teachers, meet with our teachers, provide us lots and lots of feedback on how we can improve, both as individual teachers and as a school as a whole. They provide training and professional development multiple times a year to our board members, to our school leaders, myself, our deans, our director of operations, as well as all of our teachers. They provide monthly Zoom sessions that allow teachers from Hillsdale-affiliated schools across the United States to tap into each other for the support and guidance and wisdom and experience that this network of schools has to offer. So lots and lots of great guidance, advice, and in a wonderful curriculum. The curriculum comes from Hillsdale College as well. And in return, we promise them that we're going to provide an excellent classical education to every student who comes to Ivy Classical Academy, and that's how we pay them back. So it's a great relationship that we have with Hillsdale College. What is the status of Ivy Classical Academy's facility? Well, as I mentioned earlier, we had some engineers and designers and others on site today putting together the plans to and making sure that we're ready to actually start digging in and putting up walls and putting in carpet and bringing down walls where necessary on our campus. So phase one, which is the phase that we'll have done by August when students are coming for their first year at Ivy, is the two-story building that is behind the Belk at High Point Town Center. That will be our elementary school building, and that'll be done by August. And then the building that's right next to it, we're going to connect those and make them one building, and that building will be our middle school building. That's phase two. So they'll start working on that as soon as our elementary school is done, so that that building is ready for our sixth graders in the 25-26 school year. And then, of course, we'll start to develop the other nearby buildings to become our high school as well. The next question here, and I'm going to take a quick drink of my coffee. Will computers be used in the classroom at Ivy Classical Academy? Classical education is not anti-technology, but it is in favor of the prudent use of technology in the classroom, and I think that much of the enthusiasm, slogans like a computer for every child, for example, that we have seen over the last 20 or 30 years in contemporary American education, much of that enthusiasm is misplaced and imprudent, to say the least. So what does a prudent use of technology look like? The teacher will have access to a projector, to a document camera, and to their own laptop. And they'll be able to use it to supplement or to enhance their teaching, never to replace or to supplant the place of the teacher as the center of the classroom. So, for example, a teacher might use the projector to show a map of whatever place the students are studying in history. They might show a great work of art, right? We might put the Mona Lisa up on the board and use that as the basis for a discussion of Leonardo da Vinci and of that particular work of art, right? But what teachers won't do is hand every child an iPad and expect them to be on iReady for the next 40 minutes. Instead, the teacher is teaching in the classroom, not relying on the technology to do the teaching for them. Students will use computers about 3 times a year in the lower school, and that is when they do the testing that we do for progress monitoring purposes. They'll do that testing on a computer. It takes about an hour to 2 hours, and that's 3 times a year. And then in the upper school, they'll have the opportunity to take STEM electives in high school to the extent that we can offer them. We'll offer typing courses, and they'll be able to do some of their written assignments on computers as well. But that is really the extent of the use of computers in classrooms at Ivy Classical Academy. What should parents expect as their child or children transition to classical learning, and how can they help? That is a wonderful question, and we're going to put up an FAQ on the website that'll have a much fuller answer than I'm going to give right now. But I think there's two things that are really fundamental there that you can help your child to do or that you can do to help your child transition into a classical education like that we offer at Ivy. The first and by far the most important is to establish open lines of communication and cooperation with the school, right? To constantly remind ourselves, even when we may disagree, even when you may not understand, why the teacher is using a particular technique in the classroom, or whatever it is, even when disagreements arise, to seek cooperation and to never disagree with your child's teacher or the school in front of your child. Instead, to seek opportunities for dialogue with the teacher. We're very within a classical education and within really within well-functioning schools in general, we put a great deal of emphasis on an openness in dialogue and on directing your concerns to the person that is most pertinent, that those concerns are most pertinent to, right? So there is a tendency perhaps for some to have a disagreement with the teacher or some way that the teacher is teaching, and to go right to me, right, as the head of school, when the best way to approach that is to go to the teacher. And I know that some people are conflict averse, and that may be a difficult conversation, but it is those difficult and open conversations that is the most important part of helping every child to succeed at any school, including Ivy Classical Academy. Along with that, I did include a list of books that we recommend for each grade level as they prepare to come into Ivy Classical Academy. That'll give them a great sample of the sort of literature that they'll be encountering, and it'll help to get them primed for what they're going to be learning at those grade levels. So I do recommend taking a look at the last newsletter that was sent out, and we'll post it here on Facebook as well, so that everyone has access to it and that list of recommended reading. So give a read to that, and look for those books, and take a look at the podcasts and the articles that are recommended there as well, because it'll give you a great understanding of classical education and of what it all entails. So the next question here: what is the homework load? So the full homework load that you can expect at Ivy Classical Academy is available in our family handbook as well. So go to ivyclassical.org and then go to the prospective parents, and then click on the family handbook, and you can see the full expectations for homework. The bottom line is that homework should be purposeful and targeted, and that's something that we very much try to do. Time after school should be time for family and for rest and for play in large part, but homework is useful insofar as it helps students to retain things they have learned in their long-term memory, right? There's some really interesting research about how we remember things, and we're more likely to remember something the more times that we encounter it and the more places that we encounter it in, interestingly, right? This is one of the reasons why we have students take their math test in the math classroom, for example, because you actually remember more math in the place where you learned it. It's a very odd tick of the human mind, right? So we want students to remember how to read well and how to do math outside of their classrooms. And so we'll send home some homework, but it's largely oriented around literacy practice, and then as they get older, a bit of math practice. As they get into the upper school, they'll have more practice that they'll have to do at home, some writing assignments and reading assignments in particular. But in the lower school, we have, again, that kind of policy of limited, targeted approach to homework. What role does religion play at Ivy Classical Academy? Yeah, so we are a public charter school, and what that means is that we are, as all public schools must be, non-sectarian, right? So the First Amendment does a couple of things to public schools. A, it makes it so that we, as a public school financed by the government, do not support any particular religion, and it makes it so that students are allowed the free exercise of their religious beliefs, even within the school context. Now, in the history that we study, in the literature that we study, we will come across and we will talk about the important role that religious beliefs and religious institutions have played in art, in literature, in historical movements, and the development of ideas. For example, I'll give a couple of examples here. In second grade, students will study the history of India. It would be hard to do that without also learning about Hinduism and Buddhism, which are the two largest religions that began in India, and that still the majority of people in India adhere to. And so we'll talk about the stories of those religions and the role that those religions have played. In fifth grade, we'll learn about the Renaissance, and we'll look at the history of the Renaissance in our history class, and then we'll go to art class, and we'll look at Renaissance art. And it would be very hard to find Renaissance art that is not deeply influenced by the Christian religion. And so we'll talk about the influence that Christianity had on the Renaissance. Or in sixth grade, we might talk about the development of the concepts of human rights and how that ties to Jewish ideas of individual dignity that we derive from the biblical text. And so without propagandizing on behalf of any particular religion, we will teach students about religion and about the role that it plays in the world. What role does politics play at Ivy Classical Academy? Also a very interesting question. The answer is that it plays a huge role because politics derives from the Greek word polis, which refers to the ancient Greek city-state, but also to community in general, right? There's a famous quote from Aristotle that you may be familiar with, that man is a political animal. And what he meant by that is that human beings are, by our nature, the sort of being that lives in community, right? He goes on after that to say that a person who can live alone is either a god or an animal, right? That he's something either more than or less than human, because humans by their nature must live in a community. So to the extent that that we live in a community, we will talk about politics, and we'll read texts that are explicitly political, things like George Orwell's 1984 or Aristotle's appropriately entitled book, Politics. But what we won't do is propagandize on behalf of any particular political beliefs, right? It is not the place of the teacher to adopt a partisan political position or to approach controversial subjects in a kind of way in which they are pontificating to the students, or in a way that is not appropriate to the age or the grade level of those students. And so those things, as they arise when students are learning about government and about the formation of government and our Constitution and its history, they'll be handled in a way that is age and grade level appropriate, and that does not adopt or propagandize on behalf of any particular partisan political parties today. Will Ivy Classical Academy offer special education services, including a gifted program? Yes, we will have a student services director, and that student services director will oversee a department that will include 3 to 4 special education teachers, as well as at least 1 teacher of the gifted. And we will provide special education services as well as gifted services to students as appropriate and as are specified in their IEP, their 504, or their EP. How do I enroll my child at Ivy Classical Academy? Is it too late? It is not too late. So we just had our lottery, and there are still just a handful of seats, on average about 10 per grade level remaining. The application will open back up again at 8 a.m. on February 13th. And when that application opens up, you can begin to enroll again on a first-come, first-served basis. And those students who are the first to enroll will receive those remaining seats, and then other students will be added to our wait list as their parents apply for them. Next question here. Will students at Ivy Classical Academy be required to take the state standardized tests? Yes, we are required to take the the same state test that every other student in a public school in the state of Alabama takes. And I'm actually a big fan of that because it gives our students an opportunity to demonstrate, even by the conventional, public school metrics, what the effects of an excellent classical education are. Now, we don't teach to the test. We'll spend a little bit of time with our students to prepare them. We don't want to just come out of nowhere with, all of a sudden you have to take an hour and a half long test and everybody's acting kind of funny and, hiding the results away in a box and this sort of thing. We don't want it to be a surprise. But at the same time, we're not going to spend all year drilling to get ready for the test. Instead, we're going to provide what we've promised to Hillsdale College, to our parents, to our students, to our faculty members, that we will provide, which is an outstanding classical education. And then at the end of the year, we'll take those state standardized tests, and we will, if the track record of Hillsdale affiliated schools is any indicator, and of course it is, we will perform very, very well on those tests. I expect a very large amount of growth, especially among our students in the first couple of years. I expect our reading scores to have a huge jump over the first couple of years of the life of the school. And that's exactly what happens at schools like ours historically. The next question here, does Ivy Classical Academy have its own school board? How are members selected, and are the members listed on the website? Yes. Yes to all of the above. We do have our own board, and that board and its members are all listed on Ivy Classical Academy's website. You can go to the tab that says About Us, and then on the drop-down, you'll see the photos and the biographies of our board members, and you'll be able to take a look at that there. What happens if the school doesn't outperform Elmore County like promised? Will you lose funding and close? I don't see that happening, to be quite honest with you. Based on the historical record of Hillsdale affiliated schools like ours, there's no reason to think that we will not outperform Elmore County. And that is, that is again based on the historical record of other Hillsdale affiliated schools, other classical schools, as well as the kind of content of our curriculum across the board. There's been a lot of talk in the circles that I run in of educators and those who are especially concerned with literacy about what's being called the Mississippi Miracle, where Mississippi went from number 49 in reading test scores just a decade ago to being number 2 specifically for students who are coming from disadvantaged backgrounds last year. Just a huge leap. And what that's attributable to, the reason for that is that they introduced the principles of the science of reading. Teaching phonics in the early grades, having a content-rich curriculum, all of the things that classical schools like ours have been doing, the whole time. What about dual enrollment? Will high school students be able to get college credit? Yes. So a couple of things, right? So we're going to offer a few AP courses. We'll offer AP where AP does not represent a substantial departure from our curriculum and from the standards and the rigor that we expect in our classes. Often that's the math and the science APs that we'll be able to offer. Their humanities and their history are unfortunately just not of the quality that our regular classes are, and so we wouldn't want to replace our regular classes with classes that are of a lower quality, even if they have that AP name attached to them. We'll offer honors classes more or less across the board in the upper school. Our classes are more rigorous than the state's curriculum, bottom line, and so we typically code all of our classes as honors classes for that reason. We're looking at dual enrollment options. Again, what we don't want to do is sacrifice the rigor and the high quality of our curriculum. And so we're looking at partnerships with a number of local colleges and universities that would allow us to offer dual enrollment credit without sacrificing substance and quality in our classes in the upper school. How does your conduct policy and expectations compare to public school, given the goal of building virtue and character? Good question. Again, I've posted the student handbook on our website now, so I definitely encourage you to take a look at it. I think probably the biggest difference in terms of expectations is that our baseline expectation for how students interact with each other and with their teachers, the baseline is itself higher, right? So our students, for example, are taught explicitly how to shake adults' hands, look them in the eye and say, good morning, sir, good morning, ma'am. Please and thank you are basic requirements. They're not extras. They're not things that are going above and beyond, right? And when you have an environment in which the baseline expectation is one of decorum, of respect, and of politeness, it raises the general tenor of the school as a whole without having to introduce any new rewards or consequences. Will there be any STEM clubs or similar for elementary age children? Yes. I don't know if we'll be able to offer it, right away, but we absolutely plan to have some STEM-oriented extracurricular activities in our lower school as well as in our upper school as we grow that out as well. And what those look like will, in part depend on the resources as well as the abilities of our faculty members. This is actually another parent volunteer opportunity. If you are a parent who has a particular skill set and would like to share that with our students, we definitely want parents who will volunteer to lead some of those after-school clubs, and we'll have a sign-up roster for that as well. So it would be great to be able to offer more clubs through the resources that our wider school community is able to offer. I have just a few final notes that I want to share with everyone before we sign off. I do have a 6:30 hard stop time, so I'm being respectful of everyone's time here. So as I said at the beginning, students who have been offered a seat in the lottery can begin their registration as of today. If you have not already accepted the seat you have been offered, make sure you log into Schoolmint and accept that seat that has been offered by Monday. Because if you don't, then Tuesday, when the re-enrollment or when the enrollment application opens back up, potentially another parent can get on there, complete the registration before you do, and you lose your seat, even if you've been offered a seat before them. So you need to get on there, make sure that you have accepted the enrollment, and then begin that registration process. The registration button should no longer be grayed out. Families who miss this lottery, again, the registration will reopen on Tuesday, February 13th at 8 a.m. So at 8 a.m., you'll be able to log on and complete an application, and then complete the registration process. And the remaining seats, as well as places on our wait list, will be awarded on a first-come, first-served basis. So you want to get in that system as quickly as you can at 8 a.m. Tuesday, February 13th, to get one of those remaining seats or to get a high spot on the wait list. So our registrar, Ms. Thomas, is working to review 632 at a minimum completed applications for our students. So she has a lot of things that she is having to do to make sure that all of our students are getting enrolled on time. So we do ask that if you have questions that are not directly related to enrollment, you send those questions to info@ivyclassical.org. Please only direct questions or concerns that are directly related to enrollment and to Schoolmint to Ms. Thomas, because that's what she's focused on, is enrollment and Schoolmint. Other questions, they come to me or to Mr. Strain, who is our Director of Operations, and they will come through info@ivyclassical.org. A couple of notes from Ms. Thomas to make sure that we get all of your paperwork in on time. We will need, when you're turning in your paperwork, current immunization records. We can't accept outdated immunization records. So make sure that your child's immunization record is up to date. If it's not, then get that appointment scheduled as soon as you can so that you can get it turned in to us. We'll need a current proof of residency as well. We need to see what county your child is in, so that if they live in Elmore County, we'll be able to give them preference. We, of course, need to see that all of our students are residents of the state of Alabama. And if we find discrepancies in your application, as Ms. Thomas is going through and reviewing these, she is going to put a note in your application on the Schoolment parent portal. So make sure that you check back on the parent portal even after you submit all of your registration paperwork. Check back periodically and make sure that that you're not seeing any notes pop up, because Ms. Thomas will add a note on the parent portal specifically that provides you with instructions on what you need to do. Thank you again for taking the time this evening to learn more about Ivy Classical Academy. One more note, I want to make sure that everyone is aware that we do have the Picnic and Play event coming up on March 9th, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. We do require an RSVP for that. The link went out in our newsletter, so make sure that you RSVP if you're coming for that. We're going to have some food trucks out there. We'll have a big slide and a bounce house. It's a great opportunity for all of our new students to get to know each other, our parents, of course, to get to know each other. I'll be there, Mr. Strain will be there, Miss Thomas will be there, and it'll be a great event for all of our families as we build this Ivy Classical Academy family. Thank you so much again for coming tonight. It's a pleasure to be a part of your child's education. Have a great rest of your evening.